Okay, 3 things that I know now that I wish I knew in my 20s. Now, each of these rules or lessons that I learned, they all have a story attached to them. So I'm going to go through each story. You'll probably be able to guess the rule as I'm halfway through the story, but I think they're valuable lessons. So let's get started. The first lesson has to do with me getting my first shop when I started vinyl wrapping. So for those who don't know the story, a few years ago when I got into all of this, I was in education before. I didn't really see a future there, didn't see a career for me. So I switched and got into vinyl wrap. Now, to do vinyl wrapping, I needed my own place, I needed my own shop. And at the time, I really had no money to rent. Like the shops are going for $3,000-$4,000 a month. And I just didn't have that much money. No clientele, nothing. I'm starting brand new. I don't have that kind of money to throw around. So when I'm looking for the listings, I'm looking for the cheapest ones available. I find a really cheap one. I think it might have been the cheapest one. And the reason it was the cheapest is because the ad said that the owner or the landlord, he worked there at that shop. And basically this listing was for the front half of the shop. But the back half, where like the main door is, it said the owner, the landlord, needs access to that because he brings cars in and out too, or something like that. So I looked at that and I read it and I went, why would I want to deal with that? I don't want to have a landlord that's in my space or in my face every day. I kind of want my own. I want my own shop. I want my own space. You want everything to be your own. So I'm like, yeah, screw that. I'm going to keep looking. I actually got some realtors, like friends and whatever, to help me look. Found some shops, and again, they were in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, and I couldn't afford that. So I go back to this ad, this cheap one, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, you know what? Screw it. Why don't I just call the real estate agent and see what they say? Whatever. So I give him a call, and very nice real estate agent picks up. I'm like, what's the story? Like with this ad, it said call for more information. Well, what's the story? Like the owner needs access. Yeah, he has his own automotive shop there too. So he can't give you access to the whole thing. He needs the back door infrequently or something like that. But I didn't trust that. And I'm trying to get more information, but she's very standoffish. It's kind of getting a little frustrated. And then the conversation turned and she asked me, what do you do? Or what do you need this space for? And I said, well, I'm trying to get into vinyl wrapping. I'm looking for my own space. And she's like, oh, immediately attitude, tone, everything shifted. She's like, oh, okay, let me call the landlord and I'll set up a meeting between you two. I was like, oh, okay. Again, I wasn't really interested in the shop, but sure, why not? I meet the landlord and I go to the shop, I meet him, and he has like this shop that I'm going to be or trying to rent the front half of is like a automotive customization type shop. The best way I would describe it to my friends and family is like West Coast Customs. It was that. Basically, whatever you want done to your car, this guy can do it. And I was like, oh, so this place is pretty cool. So I started talking to him, and he says he was actually trying to look for someone to do vinyl wrapping for him, trying to get an employee, but he couldn't really find anyone. So he's like, if you have your own business here, do you want to work together? I was like, oh, yeah, sure. That awesome. Why not? So I ended up signing the lease. I did. And that was my first shop. And I built a lot of connections with him, a lot of his customers, like these are people who like customizing cars, right? They have custom stereos or custom body kits or whatever. A lot of them want custom wraps. So I was lucky enough that I was able to work with him and he passed on a lot of his customers to me. And I got to network that way. All of that to say that the first lesson I learned here is that what's meant for you might not be what you want. And it's funny because I think it reminds me of Bruce Almighty, for those who have seen that movie. Bruce, like the town, everything's gone to hell. Bruce has God's powers, right? Everything's gone to hell. People are rioting or whatever. And he calls out to God, God help, whatever. And God shows up and they start, talking about what's going on. And God says to him, how did you help people? How did you answer their prayers, right? And Bruce says something like, I just gave everyone what they wanted. So if you prayed to win the lottery, God gave you won the lottery. There was one girl who lost weight eating only Krispy Kreme donuts or something, funny stuff like that. But God's response to that was, and since when has anyone known what they want? And I think that's perfect. You don't really know what you want. And you have to keep your eyes open, because if I just skip by this ad, I didn't want this shop. I didn't want a tiny little, front half of a shop with another guy there. I didn't want that at all. But it was the best decision I ever made. It really got my career in this off the ground here. It allowed me to get into vinyl wrapping, which allowed me to get into YouTube. And it could not have worked out better. So again, that lesson is what's meant for you, whether you believe in destiny or fate or God or whoever is guiding you along your path, whatever's meant for you, it might not be what you want, because you really don't know what you want. Because you don't know what you want, sometimes it's hard to stick to the path. And there's a lot of times where it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I might have to stop here because I'm running out of money. I don't see this getting any better. Kind of hard to get customers and stuff like that. So in the same vein, like I said, it's funny because one time I was having a bad day, and I was thinking, how the hell am I going to pay my bills this month? I'm tapped out. I maxed out credit cards, line of credit. What the hell am I going to do? And as I said, I was in education before. So I'm sitting at my desk at home, and I'm just thinking, this might be it. It's time to fold it up, go back to teaching, go back to education, because I'm out. I don't got any more money to pay these bills. And I got mail that day. I opened up the mail. It was a check from my education days, 2 years post dated, or retroactive or whatever. It was payment that I was owed from 2 years prior. And the payment on that stub was the exact amount I needed to pay my bills that month. So I think when you're on the right path, when you're doing what's meant for you, not what you want, when you're doing what's meant for you, things like that happen. There are plenty of signs to tell you that you're on the right path. So keep your eyes open for those. Okay, lesson number 2. Obviously they're all connected because they're all in this automotive realm. It has to do with, if you remember, a while ago, I made a video about wrapping an Audi A3. It was that wide body, the gray A3 that was converted to an S3. That video, or that car. So that car was a customer brought me that car who was a referral from the landlord that I mentioned before. Again, another reason that it was good that I went there to start with that landlord. So he brings me this car. Hey, can you wrap this car, wrap it gray? Sure. It's a wide body, never done a wide body before. I was a little intimidated, but I need the business and I want to try to expand my skills. So sure, yeah, let's do it. But the car was wrapped. The car was a green color. And I thought that was interesting because, why are you not going to the original shop or whatever? But turns out he just got this car. He didn't have this Audi before. I bought it from someone else. Okay, that's interesting. Then I find out that this car belonged to someone who was affiliated with a performance shop. Let's just say the performance shop owned this car because it doesn't really matter. A mechanic performance shop owned this Audi. So I wrap it gray, and it's all good. Car leaves, get paid, everything's good. Nothing unusual. A couple days go by, a couple weeks go by, whatever. I get a picture, my wife texted me, a picture of this Audi. And she said, is this the one you wrapped? My first response was where are you that you see this car? She's like, no, I'm at work. But my coworker sent me this picture. And I was like, okay, what's happening here? How does her coworker know about this car? So her coworker was friends or is friends with people at this performance shop. Now, because they owned this Audi before, that's where it was getting serviced. So the customer who has it now, my customer, is still bringing it there to get it serviced. When it's there, her coworkers take a picture of the Audi, send it to her because my wife likes cool cars. They like cool cars. They're car guys. And look at this cool Audi. And she goes, I know that car. I think my husband wrapped that car. And they've talked about me vinyl wrapping before, and they've heard that I vinyl wrap. So now they see this car and they're like, oh, it looks pretty good. I want to get my car wrapped. So now they're interested in wrapping their own car. It's worked out for me because they see my, I guess, a portfolio, you could do it that way, my work in real life. And now they're interested in getting their car wrapped. So we kind of built a relationship there. I'm still in touch with them today, and they're really cool guys. And it's cool that you can meet people that way. But the odds of that happening, that this car was at that shop and my wife and her coworkers are talking about wrapping their car, and then they see a car that I've wrapped, is like, what are the odds of that, right? So obviously that goes to the second thing I wish I knew. And everyone says it, it's cliche, but the world is super small. It's so much smaller than you think. You really have no idea who you're talking to. But instead of just being that cliche rule, there's a second part to that, which is, and I'm going to tell a story about, has to do with Bryan Cranston and Breaking Bad, but sometimes you only get one shot. And I remember seeing, I don't know if it was a podcast or something, interview, something like that, with Bryan Cranston. And for those who don't know, correct me if I get the story wrong, but he did an episode. So Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, did an episode of the X-Files, I'm pretty sure, way back when. And Bryan Cranston was cast in that episode that Vince Gilligan wrote of the X-Files way back in the day. Because of that episode, because Bryan Cranston did such a good job in that episode, Vince Gilligan thought of him for Breaking Bad so many years later. So Bryan Cranston's telling this story, and it was like, imagine if I did a bad job. Imagine if Vince Gilligan didn't like the way I acted in that episode. Maybe I don't get Breaking Bad because he's not impressed with my work or impressed with me as an actor or my skill set or whatever. It's the exact same scenario here. So yes, I built a reputation with these guys now, and like I said, they're cool guys. It's nice to have that relationship. But I doubt that relationship would be there if this car shows up, this Audi shows up, and it's mangled. The wrap's peeling everywhere, it's damaged, trim pieces are missing, that kind of thing. So sometimes you only get one shot. And like you said, you only get one chance at a first impression, all those cliches, but it's true. You really only get one shot. So you never know when that opportunity is. You never know when that shot, when you're in the moment. So treat every moment like it's your one shot. Always do your best work. Who are you when no one's looking? That kind of thing. What's your character? Always be the best. Do the best that you can with your abilities in the current moment, so that if that opportunity strikes, if there's that one chance to impress somebody, you will. And just always be ready. Okay, the last lesson, or the last thing that I know now that I wish I knew in my 20s. And to be fair, I think I did know this one in my 20s because I was raised by really good parents, and they taught me what matters in life, what matters and what doesn't matter. And what does matter, and this last lesson, what does matter is your spouse. Who you choose to spend the rest of your life with, whether it's spouse, partner, whatever, that's not important. The person that you choose to spend the rest of your life with, that's how your life will be. So if you choose to be with an angry person, you'll probably be angry the rest of your life. If you choose to be with a loving person, you'll probably feel loved the rest of your life. Happy person, you'll probably be happy, and so on and so on and so on. So your spouse, and it's so many people, I think this is like, there's so many people I know, and I'm sure there's so many people that are just, they're not with the right person. And you can just tell because you knew them before and you know them now. They were happy before and now they're miserable. Or they were passionate before and now they've kind of faded into nothing, right? You can tell if the partner or if the spouse is making you a better version of yourself. And I think Marilyn makes me so much better with her than I am without her. I would not have this YouTube channel without her. I don't even know if I'd be vinyl wrapping without her. I really don't. There was so many times that before we were married that I talked to her about, as I was saying before, about like not having enough money. There's so many instances where I'd be like, this might be it. I kind of might have to close up shop here, go back to teaching, go back to education because we're not making the money. And, it's not fair to her. I can't just be trying to chase a dream forever. And at least that's how I felt. And her response to that could have been, yeah, go make us money. What the hell are you doing? You idiot. You're wasting your time with this YouTube stuff. Could have been that. But it was literally the exact opposite. It was, I won't let you quit. You're not allowed. So for everyone watching this channel, I'm not allowed to quit. I think I'm going to be here for a while. But she's supportive, dedicated, determined, passionate, caring, selfless, everything. She is my person. And I hope everyone out there finds their person, because like I said, I think it will determine the outcome of your life. I really do. And maybe that sounds dramatic, but I truly believe that. There are so many things. I mean, at the beginning of the video, I said, what you want might not be what's meant for you. And there's so many things that Marilyn has encouraged me to do that I would never think of doing that have worked out in our favor. Like, it was definitely the right decision to do. Even right now, she's saying, have you thought about getting your dealer license? I'm like, I don't want to be a car dealer. What do I want that for? And she's like, yeah, but then you can buy cars and show, how to wrap different cars on the channel. You don't have to worry about, dealing with trying to get rid of them and like all the taxes and, the laws about how many cars you can buy and then how many cars you can sell. Why don't you just get your license so it's easier? It makes more sense. And I was like, it never occurred. Like, my thought process would be, I don't want to be a car dealer. Why the heck do I need that? I don't need that. But then you just have a different set of eyes from someone who cares about you and wants to see the best for you. And it's just like, there's no way to describe it. I'm clearly at a loss for words. I can't describe it. But all I can say is, lesson number 3, your spouse will determine your life. So make sure you find your person. Don't take the decision lightly. If you find a person like I found my person, I don't think you could have a better life. So that's what I learned. Maybe you guys can relate, but that's all from me. So thanks for watching.